A couple of months ago, I played through Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen for the first time. The game is renowned for many reasons, but its story isn't usually one of them.
His name is Ballsack? Why is his name Ballsack?
It's not difficult to see why. The game has issues with pacing, and I think some parts of the narrative lack depth. But in spite of that, it has a lot of interesting ideas,
Ballsack.
and serves as a pretty earnest love letter to people and the unique space we occupy within nature. For as invested in the human condition as the game clearly is, a lot of its commentary is delivered through two other species in the game's world. So before we can talk about humans, we need to talk about goblins. Goblins are an incredibly common archetype in fantasy, and I think a big reason for that is the way they kind of straddle the line between animal and human. Wolves are another common foe in Dragon's Dogma, but calling them a foe feels kind of strange, Because at the end of the day, there's nothing malicious about what wolves do. They eat because they need to. It's not merciful, but it also isn't evil. It's nature. There's something uninteresting about a story where a heroic figure has to slay a pack of wolves to save the day. But people come with their own baggage in fiction. There's an amount of guilt and shame involved in the killing of other humans that can be hard to write with, and even harder to justify narratively. A big reason for that is the fact that people believe different things. What seems villainous to an author might be less so to an audience, or at least to a subset of an audience. Xeon did nothing wrong and all that. When people are villains, they have to believe something villainous, and coming up with something that everyone will agree is villainous, and villainous enough to warrant violent resistance, is not as easy as it sounds. And so the natural answer is, goblins. Goblins behave like wolves. They eat when they're hungry, they sleep when they're tired of eating. That's a verbatim quote, by the way. But they walk like people. They swing swords and crack one-liners like people. They're human enough that we can project onto them some amorphous concept of evil without having to attend the realities of that word. Like wolves, they eat to survive, but unlike wolves, we can pretend that they act as moral agents. Goblins reflect humans, the worst parts of humans anyway. The parts that bleed and the parts that kill, but goblins aren't the only reflections found in this game. The Pawn Legion is made up of humans, at least at first glance, but they're not quite human. They're described by others and even themselves as lacking the spark that drives. What the pawns lack is a will, and what they gain in its stead is eternity.
Some part of me has long known I was, in truth, a pawn. I do not age or die as others.
The pawns do not know death as humans do. The goblins share our flesh and blood, and the pawns share our consciousness. But on their own, neither of those things matter. What sentience the pawns have is incomplete, and incomplete specifically because they exist without strife.
The Pawn Legion are without self, void of any independent will. We bear no desires, no ambition, naught which impels humankind to aggrandize the self.
And what strife the goblins face is meaningless because they lack the conscience required to learn from it. To live without suffering might be heaven, but the imperfections around us make us want for a better world. We're not alone in our pain. The flora and fauna around us deal with the same brutal, violent world, but we have what they don't, and that's a heart that can feel and a mind that can think. The world isn't fair, but it's a remarkable thing that we can recognize that. And at the end of the day, we're the only ones.